And of course, they're talking throughout the whole thing, right? They're commenting. So they're like, this ain't even scary, but I can't even see anything. Man, this fog is thick. Like, you just have all this commentary going on. And then, dude, you see that in front? Those people? Yeah. What do they do? Why are they just standing there? You see them? They're just standing there like that. Why aren't they moving? I don't think we should. No, let's go. No, wait. They start slowing. You can actually hear the crowd like slowing because they're losing their confidence. But you hear them talking about it, and then you hear the ripple, like all the people in the back start whispering. It's like, they saw somebody. Like, I was like, right. And then the door slams. Everybody screams and jumps because something slammed behind them, and then we just run at them in a line, like a football team for no reason at all.
Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door.
Talking about spooky stuff. Although I will say we harmonized beautifully just then.
Yes. Welcome to the Ghouls Next Door, the media literacy podcast from a horror lens where we explore the real life, historical, entertaining ways that our cinematic horrors are influenced. And we had covered haunted attractions a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, where we talked about our experiences at haunted attractions and also
some questionable ones.
Haunted attraction that's not a haunted attraction.
Exactly.
And we kind of teased it out in that episode. But we went to the Eastern State Penitentiary's haunted experience or like Halloween experience.
Yeah, Halloween nights.
Halloween nights now. It has, evolved over the years. And so we have invited two guests to talk about their experiences with the Eastern State kind of Halloween experience, how it's evolved, what it started out as, and what it's doing now. And so we have invited, at least to kick it off, to tell us about the founding experience that is a great friend of ours. You've seen them on here several times. Super talented. Every time I talk to them, they're like, "Oh, well, I also did this thing," and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. Just like a 10 out of 10 brain.
Yes, fully agree. So we're welcoming Wi-Moto Nyoka to talk to us about the Eastern State Penitentiary experience. But
hello.
Hi, welcome. For folks who haven't listened to the many other episodes that we have with you, could you let us know a bit about you?
Yes. So I'm a horror and sci-fi maker. I am the founder and executive producer of Dusky Projects, where we make audio and theater and new media content in genre. So, and I am also the producer for Black Women Are Scary, which is a podcast. And Gabe here is the sound designer. So check that out to hear her like sonic stylings.
Yes, always exciting. And it's definitely a plan of ours to have like an episode that's just dedicated to that. Because I think people need to know. It's 3 seasons of really amazing stories.
We're in the middle of our 3rd season. It's kind of amazing. I'm like, I can't even believe I've been doing it. I have 3 seasons. It's like,
yes.
You guys have been at it for a minute too. Like I feel like people need to know more about the Ghouls Next Door. So.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, 6 years.
We don't season them, but we have done it for a whole 6 years.
Yeah.
We call them their seasons.
Are they? Do they call them seasons on the thing? Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like the book, but except it's just a podcast instead of...
The 6th edition. The 6th edition.
Yeah. Instead of 5th season.
I was thinking of the 5th season. the horror book about seasons that murder everybody.
Yeah.
It's way deeper
Unlike
than
our
that, but
seasons now.
yeah.
Awesome. So, Wi-Moto, we wanted to pick your brain because I
Mhm.
had a great conversation with you about how Eastern State Penitentiary, which is a prison here in Philadelphia that is no longer active, but does have this very rich history,
Mm.
that are, is full of a lot of pain, a lot of questionable decisions. There's a lot of just like entertaining weird things that happen there. And so this haunted attraction started a little differently than what we know it as
Mm.
today. So can you tell us
Yes.
about like how you were like what you were brought in to do and what it looked like?
Yeah. So this was early aughts. And Eastern State Penitentiary, it's a historical site. So at the time, I was working there as a guide, a tour guide, and I think you can still. I don't know. I haven't been in a minute, but I feel
Yeah.
like you can still do this. You can,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. I really loved the job. It was like I think it might have been like my first job out of college.
Oh, wow.
Like it was like I'm graduated. I was working part time at the Philadelphia Museum and then doing also regional theaters and here back when the
Yeah.
Music Theater was still like an active theater and not just showing movies.
Yeah.
And
It was.
yeah, so then this was like okay, I got shifts, like I'm working here.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, what they would do is they would give you all this information about the tour, and they were like, these are the points that you need to hit. However, how you want to hit them is up to you. Like they didn't give you a script. They were just like,
Mm.
make sure you say bullet point, bullet point, bullet point.
Got
Mhm.
you.
And then they're like, this is the track too. Like where you're walking people, because it's
Mm.
important. Some parts of it are, falling apart and you need a hard hat and you like just can't, you need a
Yeah,
hard hat
yeah,
to go in. You can't go anywhere because it'll fall on your head. Like they're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
don't take people there. Although when you work there, they totally take you to those parts and they're like, come look at the medical ward. And it's creepy and it's wonderful. And you're like, ew, look at the beds. So I loved it because I just kind of got to basically come up with a long monologue and perform. And I had a really good time doing the tours. So when they just said like, okay, we're going to try a haunted thing. And I think if memory serves, they were sort of under pressure to do something for Halloween. They
Mm.
were a historic landmark, and they were like it was like a museum. They had exhibitions in one of the cell blocks, and I feel that they still do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think they have like a
Artists.
day tour where you can like learn
Yeah.
about it and stuff.
I think it
So.
Yeah,
was supposed to be like a fundraising opportunity.
Mhm.
right. Like it was, but it was like this is a historic landmark. This is about the history of the prison industrial complex in the United States. Like
Mhm.
they were, this is run by scholars. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they had a wing that had, art exhibitions where people would do like really interesting pieces about the prison system.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was like video installations, like it was art with a capital A.
Yeah.
And then they were like, everybody's like, we'll do something for Halloween because it's spooky and because
Mhm.
like 12 monkeys shot here. So like do a thing. And so they're like, fine. So in the beginning, you could sign up if you wanted to work the extra hours
Mm.
at night. And I was like, all right, cool. And we learned a bunch of scary stories, like just like a bunch of like weird happenings from people, testimonials from like former employees that claimed that they saw things and whatnot. And
Mm.
we would tell people scary stories in these different parts of the penitentiary, like wings that were not available, that were safe to go in, but were not on the tour during the day.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you got to see like and you get to see it at night, and it's creepy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But nobody liked that. Like people were mad. They were coming in. They were standing in the cold,
Yeah.
listening to me in a cloak tell a spooky story in a dimly lit, cold cell block. And then they would leave and they thought it was a haunted house. So everybody complained. Everybody complained. That lasted like
Oh,
about a
wow.
weekend.
I mean, ghost tours in Philly like sell well. I'm surprised
really
that
big
people
deal,
were
yeah.
like so angry about
Everybody
it.
was like, no.
I guess it's maybe
And so
marketed
then,
wrong. But yeah.
yeah, I don't know. So then the supervisor was like, we have to make this a haunted house. Now, this was not the plan.
Yeah.
Right? So you just have like, I don't know, like theater people and like goth people, like whoever signed up to do this, right?
Yeah.
Just like a girth, an expanse of just folks who needed a job to like people who like theater to I don't know, comic book lovers, like whatever, who work this. We're just like, you need to make it scary. And we were like, okay. So they just gave us a bunch of props. Just props. like chains and things, and a like a boom box and a fog machine. The fog machine is very important.
Yeah.
They gave us a couple of fog machines, and then we would find and figure out ways to scare the crap out of people every weekend.
Yeah.
It was a different thing every night. We would like huddle up and be like, what do we want to try tonight? It was like a workshop presentation every time. and then it was devised theater. And so by the time we get to like the middle of the month, we're like, this is what works, this is what works, this is what works, and we're falling into a pattern.
Yeah.
So the first half of the tour is the stories, and then the second half is the ghost story part. So you come in, and I think most of them were happening in the stories were being told in the newer cell blocks. Then you get to the rotunda, and then you go into one of the old cell blocks, like cell block 1, which still looks like a cathedral.
Oh, okay.
If you've ever been inside of it, that's like it's like the first one that was built, so it's like high ceilings. It looks like
okay. Thank you. In there, yeah.
Because that's the story of the architecture around the penitentiary.
Yeah.
That it was supposed to be a place of penitence, and well, I'm sure you already talked about all this and whatever. I'm not gonna go into it anyway. So then you go into that block, and then that's like where the like spookiness would happen. And I gotta tell you, it was just like it's really fun. I think that's when I knew I loved horror.
Yeah.
And I loved, watching it and reading it. And I told horror stories, like wrote short stories, but it wasn't something that I thought that I could do, like the way I do now, where I'm like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. And then this was the beginning of me, at least, I don't know about everybody else, but for me, it was like, oh, I really enjoy scaring people like this. And there's an art to this, like learning like the craft of scaring people and the joy. Like people were signing up, like we got better and better. Word got out, the lines got longer and longer.
Yeah.
And then we started to learn like, okay, we do these things in the second part. People in the first half of the tour, because it's split, right? So there's one who's telling the stories, the other ones who are doing the scary part, and we would switch every night. So we also figured out like, okay, I'm on story shift this Saturday, and then Sunday I'll be on the scary part. Like, so it wasn't always the same group of people. Like, again, this is just us, the workers. I don't remember like having a director or a manager like say like do it like this. Like we just figured this out so that we wouldn't get fatigued. So that everybody would have a turn to scare people and bring in their ideas. We would try new things every night. We were just like, okay, tonight I want to try this, and it was like a very like yes and kind of
horror improv.
And we learned like, hey, when they're scared, the group that's coming up can hear the other group screaming. So it doesn't actually matter what the story is at this point or where you are. It's the fact that you're in another cell and they hear another group running and screaming someplace else, and they're like, oh my God, that's about to happen to us. And so you could say whatever. Like I was like, this is all just like the prep. So I learned that like the anticipation, like building up that tension and suspense is really important. Not being able to see and only hear things is scarier than if you can see it. Thinking a thing is one. So like one thing I tried is that I would squat in the rotunda, and I had like this, like it was like a regular Halloween costume, like black cloak thing with a hood. Like all of us wore this, like druids or something. So I would put it on. You couldn't see my face, and I would squat down, and I would stay completely still, and people would assume that I was a decoration. And they would start to forget. They were like, is that a person or a thing? And then nothing would happen. They're like, oh, it's just, and then they would just forget. It was great. This one woman was just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. She started talking. I sat there for like forever. Like they were just waiting for the second part, and she was going on and on and on and on. And then the Grandmaster MC, which was the thing that we made up, would be like, welcome to the bud. He would open up the gate, and then they started moving, and I stood up. And she screamed at the top of her lungs. And it was awesome. She was like a genuine terror running into the crowd. Then you've got a bunch of people in the front who didn't see what happened. Some of her friends saw, and they laughed so loud for so long at her. She was like, oh my God, I was a person the whole time. So like, assumptions. My favorite that we thought up was we started to learn that to turn up the smoke with the fog machine. We had two, like one in the front and one in the back. And the one in the front, we would turn it up real high so that when people would walk into the cell block, they actually couldn't see. They'd have to walk through a fog.
Ooh.
And then usually the grandmaster person who was at the gate, he chained himself to the gate. Perfect. He would like slam it. And so then then there was like the sound of something slamming behind you and realizing that you're trapped.
Ooh, yeah.
And then we would sort of chase them down the hallway.
Yeah.
So we would actually hide in cell blocks and they would keep walking down and it would seem like no one was there. And then we'd jump out and be like, ah, and they were like, ah, and we would chase them down and there'd be a spooky monologue at the end.
Yeah.
What we learned though is that we did that for a while and that was working. And then we were like, one night we were like, let's just try something else. So we stood in a we took up space in the middle of the block and stood in a horizontal line right across from. We didn't hide.
Oh, that's almost scarier in the dark.
With our hoods on, like this, you couldn't really see our faces, in a line, not moving. It was wonderful because that night the fog machine was in rare form. So the fog was thick because sometimes it wasn't like
it wasn't fog enough.
Yeah.
So then we would have to hurry up and jump out and scare people and like herd them down to the end. This night it was good. So they were really walking through the fog, and there were two, and I'm gonna say their race because it matters. There were two black teenagers in the front of the group. They were boys, so they had a lot of bravado. They were too cool for school, right? They were tough.
They're like, I'm not going to get scared.
Going to be scared. And that's why they were in the front and they were leading the crowd. It was all a mix of people, but that was who was in the front. Those were the leaders. And of course, they're talking throughout the whole thing, right? They're commenting. So they're like, this ain't even scary, but I can't even see anything. Man, this fog is thick. Like you just have all this commentary going on. And then, dude, you see that in front? Those people? Yeah. What are they doing? Why are they just standing there? You see them? They're just standing there like that. Why aren't they moving? I don't think we should. No, let's go. No, wait. They start slowing. You can actually hear the crowd like slowing because they're losing their confidence and they're right in the front. They're like the point of this triangle. And then they finally like, we're just waiting. We don't do anything. But you hear them talking about it, and then you hear the ripple, like all the people in the back start whispering. It's like, I was like, right? And then they kind of come out of the fog a little more. I can sort of see them. And then that finally, what we're waiting for is for the gate to slam. So we're waiting for the entire group to be in.
Yeah.
So we do nothing. No one does anything. Everybody understands that like we should just be quiet and just let these kids do our job for us. They're freaking everybody out with their commentaries. The door slams. Everybody screams and jumps because something slammed behind them, and then we just run out the line like a football team for no reason at all. We didn't even talk about it. We just were like, we're gonna stand here until
it was a mind meld, yeah.
And then it was like we just like felt it, like
charge.
And then we just charge. We just ran at them, and they went. They scream. Oh, it was joyous. They scream. These two boys that were too tough. They scream. They run back into the crowd, and so then it's just panic. Everybody's trying to get out now because there's an entire group of people that never left the fog, and all they know is that people in the front are running back.
Oh my goodness.
Amazing.
It was one of the best nights. I forget what, we had like some shtick that we would do at the end too. Like I would do this like weird thing where I would crouch down and I would just like lightly touch the back of people's ankles with my finger. Like, and that was kind of like, you weren't supposed to touch them. So I would like lightly touch them. Just like, and I would do it for a very long time until they finally looked down and then they would scream because somebody was there. Or sometimes I would just like go like a little kid, like I'm about to touch them and someone else would notice. And then I would just about to touch everybody's ankles and they would freak out. Like I wouldn't touch them. Just somebody crouched down doing this was like enough.
Yeah.
So that was what it was. It was shenanigans.
Unplanned improv shenanigans.
Shenanigans for like a month. It was a good time. I didn't do it after that, and I was kind of surprised. But there was like no production value. It was like low. It was like a low budget horror film.
Yeah.
It's kind of like like 28 days later
found
of
footage,
haunted.
like
Yeah,
Paranormal
like
Activity.
yeah. It's totally like Blair Witching.
Yeah.
The moment. Um, and then I guess now it's not that anymore. Like now
Now
it
it's
looks like
very
they
planned.
have a budget.
Yeah, they
It
got some
certainly has a
budget.
budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was people making it up.
Yeah. And I think there's parts of that's still there. Like at least with the storytelling, like one of the parts that I really enjoyed was there was like this section where you're like making s'mores and they had
Mm.
this projector where these people were performing like you could watch these like pre-recorded performances where people would tell you these spooky stories and they were like developed films, but then they'd also intermittently would have a performer come up on the stage and perform a piece, like telling a story of someone who was there or just like a spooky something. And they would perform it right there in front of everyone who's like roasting these marshmallows on this open fire, like in the
Wait,
midst
there's an
of.
open fire? Where is this?
And
Where's
it's like it's on in the outside,
Yeah.
one of the little like between parts.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of in-between activities. There's some like speakeasies,
There's
like places to drink essentially. There's like a dance section.
Oh wow.
There's music and dance.
And then there's this one
We
where
didn't
people
have
sing
any
at
of
you.
Yeah, they're singing. There was also they had a section that was all dark and you'd get a flashlight and it was the quote unquote like actual haunted parts of it. So I wanted to talk to you about like you had mentioned when I was talking to you that the place was really haunted. Like you had protocol of like
totally.
you can't go into the cell blocks alone. Could you tell us a bit about like if you experienced anything, anyone told you anything, like what?
Well, the ghost stories that we learned were like testimonials. And then the guy who was the groundskeeper, one of his stories, we had to learn it. And we spoke to him, like we got it like real account. And it just kind of seemed like it could have been he saw an apparition or he could have just been high. Like he seemed like a hippie. So it was kind of like, I don't know. But there was definitely just, there was a vibe. There was like, cell blocks that were hot for no reason than the other ones, no matter what the temperature was outside. It was always just 10 degrees warmer in this cell block.
Oh, interesting.
Or, that one, the one that Al Capone is in, I don't know if they still have that. Like, this is where Al Capone was, and they have
that's where the speakeasy was.
Yeah, so that one is always warmer for no matter what, and it doesn't echo.
Oh.
Like it's crowded.
That's super interesting.
If you're there by yourself at night,
which you probably shouldn't be.
Well, sometimes we'd have to go, like we'd have to cut through. Like we didn't, nobody was going in between. So we also we had like a direct route. And at the time, it was like, they can only be in this part, like from here to here, point A, point B. And then we had to like really guide them. So there wasn't as much free reign on the grounds. So then there'd be times when it was like, well, we got to cut through this to go here or what have you. And so that was when if I could avoid going down that block for anything, I would. Cause I was like, I don't understand why it's warmer and why it doesn't echo. Everything else is cold and it echoes because it's empty. There's things like that where you're just like, okay, that's weird, but you're just like, that's weird. Maybe it can be explained. It's an old building, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that one's insulated better or something.
Yeah, it doesn't. It did have like a carpet in there.
No, it didn't have anything in there.
Oh, now like when they do it, they have like they'll put like a carpet and a little radio, and they're like
there was no carpet. It was like all high class. It looked like everything else.
Wow,
but it was just warmer and it didn't echo. So just imagine the other cell blocks, like the same stone floor, all of that, and just for some reason this one is like this.
Yeah, that's creepy. I don't know.
It's just like a general creepy. But on the Halloween weekend, between tours, we were at the end of a cell block. It was one of the older ones, so it had to be like somewhere from one of the ones that had the cathedral ceilings, the high ceiling. And I say that because those cell blocks only have one level of cells. They didn't do they didn't start stacking them yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's no second floor, right? It's just kind of like ceiling and that's it. And we were in between tours and we were just sitting at the end of the block, like shooting, just talking, just
Mhm.
hanging out. And the spooky music was playing. And then eventually the CD ran out. CD, so that dates it. And the CD ran out and it was quiet. And we were just like, it was that lull in between people, in between this. And then I heard somebody run across, like from the end all the way, like where the rotunda is, just in a straight line down the cell block on the roof and over our heads, and then it was gone. And it sounded like footsteps. It sounded like a person running. And I was
I would
like,
cry.
that happened in the silence, in the lull of the
Mhm.
conversation, and when the CD stopped. So it wasn't the music.
Yeah.
We all just kind of stood there, and then I said, did everybody hear that? And they said, yeah. And then we never talked about it again.
Yeah.
We all just like took that in,
Yeah.
got into position, restarted the music. We never spoke about it again. We left. It was getting towards the end of the month. Like we just like never touched it, which is why
Yeah.
I know that everybody was equally scared, because when something like actually creepy happens,
Yeah, you don't want to. I don't want to accept that was real.
Yeah, you leave it alone. I just like confirmed, like we all confirmed that we all heard that, and then that like we just didn't. You just walk away from it, and you're like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I don't want to figure it out. I'm just gonna go home when my shift is done.
Yep.
I never
And turn
really,
off that part of the brain.
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn it off. Like no one was ever in like wrapping things up by themselves. Like we would always leave in a group as we like shut things down. We would just kind of wait, everybody just it was like an unspoken thing. Like we all partnered up. You're just never out on the only person who was out on the grounds by themselves was the guy who like seemed like the hippie guy.
He's like, I got this. Yeah.
And he was the one who would go out, and we were always like, ooh. But like I could never do it, because they did get like weird at night. Like you just felt like it wasn't a good idea. But definitely that experience is like the closest I've got to something,
like a real.
It was unexplained.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a bird, but it sounded like a person.
Yeah.
Running from one end to the other, and there's no reason. The groundskeeper had no reason to be on the roof. Was never really up there.
Unless he was just like, I'm going to get them. Scare them real good.
And everybody heard it. Like everybody was like, yes, I heard that. And we all collectively didn't talk about it.
That's hilarious, but also terrifying. Yeah. If we don't talk about it, it wasn't real.
I think it was more like if we knew it was real.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like if you talk about it, then you have to like explain it or figure it out or go up there.
You have to like,
like you have to investigate.
Oh, the curiosity has to take place. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
like,
fair.
We acknowledge that this happened.
That's how you survive the horror movie, 100%.
Yeah. Like, yep. Okay.
It takes a specific kind of person to be like, let's go find out more. Like whenever I see that in horror movies and I'm like, you in real life, you would not be curious. You would hear that and you would be. That's why I like Nope, because creepy thing would happen. He'd be like, nope.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go do that.
Close the door, and he would go the opposite direction. Like, and I was like, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's so funny. Have you been back since, or?
No, and it's funny. I should do that. I should just see what's different now and see how. I haven't even been to like during the day. I haven't been, so I should definitely like revisit and be like, but it was kind of a charmed time. I don't want to really like ruin it in my memory.
Yeah,
like, oh, it's commercial now or something.
Yeah, like they sold out. But no, I mean, there historical landmarks don't make money, so they did what they had to do to stay in business.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool time. I do recommend it if you do end up trying to, and I'd go again. So if you ever want to, but it was genuinely. I don't know if it was like scary, but it was entertaining. I would say. I don't know if it was as scary as that what you guys created sounded like. Like it was fun.
We got away with things. Like they were like, you just can't touch them. But like that really doesn't. That's not enough rules. So like
yeah.
you know, and then it was also like kind of dangerous for us. Like as the haunted house, you know, gained in popularity and people started to come and they were like, it's scary now. It's what we want. You know, people would show up drunk. Like the tours as they got later in the day on a Friday or Saturday night, they would get more belligerent, and so we would then have to adjust. Now that I think about it, there was a lot of like unspoken things that were happening. Like we really were an ensemble of being able to have each other's back, because people can get angry. People will be drunk and will be angry, and they will show up to be scared, and they'll be mad that you scared them. You have to like also, you know, be able to navigate these moments, and we would know like, okay, we just need to cut this short. This group right here is just too
they're not gonna.
So like finish that up, get them out. Like they won't even know the difference because they're stumbling all over themselves. So you know how Philly can get. Like
you read the room.
Belligerent. I don't think that that's the experience now. I feel like what you're describing is just way more organized. And so then in a way, like maybe it loses some of the like whatever je ne sais quoi, but like it's also probably safer. I also don't think you could get away with doing a lot of that now. Like I think with the state that people are in and like COVID, you know, like are you masked? I'm just wondering, like, is everyone wearing a mask?
It's a choice. It's not required. But it was like, because like there's some of the spots where you're outside, so you don't have to if you don't want to, and then when you like go into the cell blocks, you can wear them. Or you like, that's kind of how we operated. But some people would be masked the whole time. Some people didn't wear any masks, so you kind of like
you're like,
so we're gonna go in this group and you go in that group, you know. But there, and I mean they did implement the like you get like the glow stick necklace, so now you can opt in to be touched or taken. Like they'll put you into like a new, like I had to go through this like claustrophobia thing. We had to go down this slide thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, they got like props and stage. They have sets now.
Yeah, they have sets. It's like
definitely more like an experience kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's cool. I think Gabe and I are both desensitized to jump scares, just from the reality of what we do and watching lots of films that do that. So it's just like we kind of know a little bit ahead of time. But it's still very fun. I think like the recreational things that they've added have made it like more of a, like, if you don't want to be scared the entire time, you can just kind of have like a cool Friday, you know?
Yeah, it seems like they've also just made it a spot you can hang out in, which is an interesting way to repurpose a prison.
Yes.
People want to be there.
It can also be a nightclub, everyone. It's like, wow. Especially if you've read the history of that building, it's like, that sounds like a slasher film waiting to happen. The nightclub that was built in the prison, and of course, then the evil, not the evil ghost,
then
like
the haunted
ghost comes and starts to, you know, that's like, I should write that. That's a good short right there.
That would be a good short. And you have the context of actually working there and seeing the inside, so you have lots of fuel for it too.
That's fascinating.
It'd be like a better Hell House LLC.
No, okay, I didn't see that, but yeah,
you should watch it. Usually,
it's fun.
Listen to our episode 2. I spoil you on all the pieces, but in like I would save you time. Before we close out on you, I just wanted to see: are there any stories from like the performance part, like of telling like testimonials that stuck with you that you remember? I know it's been a long time, so it's totally fair.
It's been a long time. I just remember I remember the groundskeeper story the most, where he saw this. He was there at night and saw like an apparition of sorts. Like it was like a, something more along those lines. Not because I necessarily believed it, because he told it to us. Like, that guy actually stood in front of us and said, like, this is what happened, and we had to learn it and retell that story to random people in Philadelphia.
And then spook them.
And it's like, that dude, I remember that dude. Because I was like, this doesn't seem like a reliable source, but then also he would like walk around the grounds at night, and I'm like, well, dude, if that happened, like, why were you looking for a ghost? Like, we had all these, like, we would talk about him, like, because we didn't want to be anywhere near there.
Yeah.
Once our shift was done, like we would, like I said, we would leave the cell blocks. We shut it down together. We'd leave it together. We would go into the dressing rooms that are well lit, that are in the front, and we were like out.
Yeah. Well, because you don't want to be alone and interact with a ghost.
But he seemed like he was fine. Like he had this experience, and it was okay. And that was like the first time anybody, that I had seen been a witness to a testimony like that, and it wasn't on television, right? It wasn't like a paranormal documentary,
and then there's like a reenactment, like an
approximate
actor.
Yeah, there was none of that. It was just a person being like, this happened to me, and maybe you believe me, maybe you don't, but he believed. And so that was interesting, just to see that, and then to internalize that, and then to spread the gospel of that to other people, like just the trajectory of that story, of just, basic setup of working late and going into a part of the prison where you had to get something done that it's usually not occupied, and seeing like a fuzzy white floating thing.
Yeah, I don't even need to be in a haunted prison.
I get scared in my own house.
Yeah,
go by myself.
It was like innocuous, it wasn't. It didn't move things. Like nothing like that happened. It was just kind of like a blur of colors that didn't really make sense where it was.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it's kind of a boring story, but it's boring enough where you're like,
it could have been real.
Maybe that happened though, because it's not fantastical. It's almost like a practical viewing of a ghost.
Yeah. When I was there, when we were there was a time when we were in the Speakeasy, which is near
Al Capone's
cell, which is so funny that you're saying that, because we were there, and it could have been because it was a speakeasy, so I got free drinks as press. It could be because it was really late. It could also be because there was a lot of people there. But there was one part where, like, the speakeasy's happening in specific wings of this cell block, and so there was this one that was just no one was there.
Yeah,
and we were like talking, because like I was connecting to one of the ghost performers. Like I was like talking to her. Very fun. We got to do a tarot reading. It was hilarious. But while we were talking, there's like this guy who was like performing. He was singing. I forget what song it was.
Mr. Brightside, I think, but different.
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Brightside, because I was like, why wouldn't you say that I got a soul, but I'm not a soldier? Like, it was perfect for being a ghost. Anyway, but I saw something run past the block that no one was in, and it could have been someone who was working there, and it also could just be like, because I had a drink or two, but I saw it like out of the corner of my eye, and like looked, and it was like this shadow that like passed across, and because I like grabbed Kat and was just like, I saw, and everyone's like, okay, you're crazy, but it was literally in that spot that you're talking about, which I think is like,
that whole cell block is, I can't even believe they put anything in there. I'm like, that cell block is bad news.
Yeah. You're like, maybe
you're really
Al
tempting
Capone will be nice if you are
really tempted. Because it wasn't just Al Capone. Like, again, if you go to the day tour, like that cell block housed a lot of violent people, and was the scene for a lot of suffering and other things. Al Capone just being the most noteworthy. There was lots of other people that were moving in and through that, so I mean, like, maybe you were drunk, or maybe it was a ghost. Like, it's like, or maybe it was a ghost, because that cell block is haunted. The only other creepy thing that happened to me, and it's another one of those things where it's like, maybe this, maybe that. When we would hide in the cells, and there was one that I favored in particular. I would go in there. We'd all go into the cells, and it's a dirt floor in the cell block that we're in. So it's one of the ones where like the floor wasn't even done, or the floor had fallen apart in all the cell blocks, so you're just standing under. But we would all hide in these cells and like find ways, like moments to jump out at different times, and some good jump scares. As the tour would like be moving from one end of the cell block down to the other. And one time I was in there and I was hiding, and I was in there with somebody else, you know that feeling when you just know someone's in there with you and you kind of hear them like moving around in the dirt and you that sense that you have with like another body in the space with you.
Yeah.
And I just figured, you know, we would hide in cell blocks together.
Yeah.
So then I did my thing. It was fine. And then in the break, I was like, we were talking about the different places that we hid. And I was like, oh, were you in there with me? And they were like, nobody was in there.
Stop.
Like the jump scare was happening from inside all along.
That's so scary.
And it was one of those things where I was like, maybe I just was wrong. Clearly. But
yeah.
But I know what it is to be in a room and know that someone else is in there with you.
Yeah.
I know I'm not crazy. Like I know what that is. I can imagine that. Like to this day I'm still like, I wasn't in there alone. Like, and it wasn't even like a creepy feeling. Like I thought it was a coworker.
Yeah. And so like certain of it that you just brought it up casually.
Yeah, I just figured like
which one was in there?
Yeah, I was like, was it you? I think I asked somebody, like, was it you? Because I saw you come out. Like, I knew that one of my coworkers was in there, and had to find out. Like, nobody's in there. Nope. You were the only one in that one.
No. I would be like, all right, I'm doing my last day.
One of the
ghosts great knowing you guys.
Let's spook some people.
Like, you go first. Never went into that one again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that was before standing in the line, and it could have been just because I was like, I don't want to really. Let's try standing in a line. Like I might.
I don't want to be in there today.
Yeah. What if we don't go into the
like I kind of stopped. Like I was like, I'm not going in that one at least. Maybe because they were dark too. Like only the main thing.
Yeah, a lot of them still are.
Yeah, so again, see, it's one of those things where it's like I could have just been. You can always explain it away.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, and then you just go. You just move
never
on.
Concrete. It's just your instincts, and it's either you trust them or you're like, it was late, and
I had a long day.
Maybe it was a bird. You know,
they can't all be birds.
Like anything else could have been in there. You know.
Yeah.
For nothing.
So true. Well, thank you so much, Wi-Moto. It's been super fun. I hope it's spooky enough. Just keep that spooky energy going, even though Halloween is behind us, because it's like Halloween all the time for us.
Spooky 365.
Yeah. I mean, well, Dia de los Muertos just ended, so there's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For our listeners, where can they find you and keep up with some of the amazing things that you're working on?
Yeah. So you can get at me on Instagram and Twitter, although I might be joining the mass exodus from Twitter. I don't know. I don't even really like it anyway, so it's all the excuse. But I'm there at Dusky Projects. And then the wonderful sound stylings of Gabe Castro can be heard at Black Women Are Scary. That is everywhere and anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are also on WPEB 88.1 FM, which is the local radio station for those of you who are out in West Philly. But they also have a thing online, so you can watch it online, or you can listen to it online. The local Philly station. Our episodes air Friday nights at 10.
Excellent. Amazing. Thank you so much. Please give the show a listen and follow Wi-Moto for some really cool things that are coming down the line. And next up we have our next interview. So we'll say goodbye to Wi-Moto.
Thank you so much, ladies. Stay spooky.
Yes. So
be safe. Do not go into scary times.
Yeah.
And we're back, but with new people now. Super exciting. For this second half of our episode, we have a special guest again, specifically the Senior Live Entertainment Manager of Halloween Nights at Eastern State Penitentiary, and also my cousin. Easy Kushin. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. how is the haunt going
It's going great.
recently?
This was a nice little respite of a few days. The end of the Halloween season is typically what they call Hell Week, or Hell Weeks,
Mm.
which is a 666 week except that because Halloween fell on a Monday, it was a 667 week. Um,
Ah,
and then we are open up again for the 4th and 5th and 11th and 12th of November. So
oh wow,
a
so it
couple
keeps
days to
going. Yeah.
hang out with my wife and catch up on some things and kind of think of some new ideas for last year and for next year, and then kind of just work through getting through the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for our listeners who might not know you, what could you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. I'm an entertainer. I'm an art director and an immersive theater and like designer as well as consultant. I do a fair amount of event and art consulting. So if people have events that they need some help with or guidance or just would like an experienced eye, I kind of
Hmm.
offer those services for free to anyone that wants to throw an event that I think aligns morally or creatively with me. And then often those people hire me, and that's
Hmm.
sort of what happened with Halloween Nights. I had been DJing there since 2015 through various things. They used to have a haunted masquerade and their kickoff and media events, and really fell in love with the organization as well as the staff who continue to be there for years and years and years. And I don't know if you want to keep going, but I'm happy to do so. Just kind of this.
Yeah, no, awesome. How did you get into, like you said, you were a consultant specifically with Eastern State and you did DJing there, but how did you get into
So
your specific role you're doing now?
because I've been DJing there for years, I've had a rapport with a number of folks there, and the director of Halloween Nights, the vice president, Brett, had told me about the exciting new changes that they had made last year
Hmm.
and had invited me to come DJ their cast party, and had invited me to come kind of walk through the prison with him and just have a chat about the changes, and invited me to come through and asked for me to sign up, give some advice, and if I had any thoughts on it. And he said he was very proud of what they created, but it was a first year event going from this institution of Halloween and horror to something brand new, and
Hmm.
knew that there was some room for improvement.
Mhm.
And so I brought some friends and some other event producers and creatives, and we went through, and then I sort of just wrote him a dossier kind of critique saying that how I thought the event could be better, or there was room for improvement and what wasn't working. And he said, like, what do you want after the meeting? And I was like, I would love your event to be better. Like, I believe in this.
Yeah,
And then they kind of created this department and role for me. And I'm a part of a team of 10 of us that are senior managers that have been working on it the entire year in some capacity or another.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. Each
Yeah.
one kind of has their own special. So there's like costuming, makeup, someone that is the king of scary, who's focused on the haunts, Louis Santiago. And then there is someone who's dealing with staff engagement. There's like a really great culture of making staff feel appreciated and loved, and like
Aw.
getting people, like dealing with people before, after, throughout shows, the season, and whatnot.
Hmm.
So,
That's
That's so
awesome.
cool.
mhm.
You mentioned a lot of the changes. What are some of the things that's changed since that consulting experience, but also like right before you started?
Well, before I started, it was a linear haunted experience,
Yeah.
and which, much like any other haunted house that has multiple places to go, you come in and you're directed in a linear fashion through all of those things. And it was relentless. And it was, after years and years, there's uh, a lot of things that they'd worked on to make better and scarier. And the change to Halloween Nights did a couple things. One was, it was started because of COVID. Like they
Mhm.
Yeah.
couldn't do it, and they needed to reimagine like what was possible if you couldn't get near people. Like
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
Terror Behind the Walls had a lot of things like were if you can opt in at the start, and they give you a glow necklace, which meant you could be touched or pulled away and separated from your group, and they weren't sure how, if they couldn't do that really, and what those things could look like. And that for these 30 years, Halloween for Eastern State has always been a fundraiser, and it was two separate things. One is that the Halloween event that has its own culture and community, but it acts as a fundraiser for this historic site that is very mission focused and that's ever evolving. And the mission has changed over the years as culture has, and as people become more aware of things that should be right or were wrong or didn't know better. And now everything that I think Halloween Nights and Eastern State does is mission based and focused on, so that built in now to Halloween Nights are educational tours. There's the opportunity to visit the Prisons Today exhibit. You can do the guided voice tour with Steve Buscemi. Um, and like there's multiple bars that are all part of Triple Bottom Brewery, which is a fair chance hire, much like Eastern State, which gives living wages to people who've been formerly incarcerated and ensures. And there's a lot of programs like that and similar things that Eastern State is involved with. And I think that rather than it now always being a fundraiser, it is all one cohesive thing that the historic site can be proud of and make sure that it lines throughout the year, rather than saying one is scary thing that's just about money. And when this thing doesn't become just about money, becomes engaging, it comes about dialogue, the opportunity to showcase this amazing building, but also talk about, mass incarceration and like social justice reform and these things that like are scary topics. And that the historic site gets hundreds of thousands of people from around the world that are come through and are interested. There's plenty, like Al Capone was in prison there, and 12 Monkeys was shot there. There's a lot of things about its massive cathedral style inspiration in 10 acres that people come from to see, except that Halloween brings a very different type of person, and it brings a different crowd. And having the ability to start these conversations, show people this space, and have these talks with people that are local that might not do the tours, but now can see this and learn something, have a conversation, or think maybe I want to come back. And where before you'd get rushed through going through the haunts, now you can take your time. It's a choose your own adventure style event. You could be there for one of our biggest problems now has been figuring out like how to manage the fact that people are now spending 3 hours or 4 hours there, and what that looks like. And part of it is because people can appreciate and take in the building, or they have a like historic tour, and then they catch a couple of vampire songs, and they're watching our like skeleton dance troupe. So there's a lot of pieces to what changed overall, but for me, I took on all the things that weren't educational and scary. And as a creative director and manager for performers, I'm very performer focused. And while like I have a kind of a Jewish mother event producer mindset where I think of all the things that could possibly go wrong and worry about them, but I think about those and nail those in the ops down. But then I try to make sure that the performers feel empowered and heard. And I was coming into this institution knowing like my own background and feeling confident in my experience, but also knowing that all of the people that I was going to be working with knew this building and knew the guests so much better than I did. So I took the time to make sure that they all felt heard and that I could understand what their job was before I told them what I thought it should be, while I still was able to be empowered by senior management to say, this attraction doesn't work, and here is this attraction I thought was great. Let's give it more structure. Let's figure out the people where previously when we did audition, or when Halloween did auditions, there were actors auditions, there were ops and custodial, and now there's education built in, but there was also singing and dancing, and that was its own thing. But what I incorporated into those was learning what people's other skill sets and talents were that might not have been obvious. People that have been acting there for over a decade or
Mhm.
Mhm.
many years that we didn't know could operate on a lira or sing opera or
Mhm.
play the
Yeah.
trombone. And where before we have this phenomenal like speakeasy entertainment experience at Al Capone's cell, there is a unique style there, and there's a unique
Mhm.
kind of thing that only certain people can fit into. And our
Mhm.
skeleton dance troupe has 2 choreographed numbers that are amazing, but if you can't learn choreography, it doesn't mean that you're not a phenomenal dancer or entertainer. So when
Mhm.
those people
Yeah.
came in, all those people got asked like, what are your unique skills, and like what else can you do that maybe people don't appreciate you for, but you can also show and figure out how to empower them. So we took some of those people where like there's multiple opera singers now at Bloodline, which is our fancy vampire bar, which they could have sung easily at Speakeasy, but they probably wouldn't have been showcasing these things that are so unique that allow them to be bigger than life characters and be who they are. And people who
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
drag performers that are always in drag as their character at Halloween because that's how they feel most comfortable or to perform.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was something that was like so cool about the experience is like I remember Gabe and I went like back before when it was just like that very linear
Yeah.
you walk through, then you leave. Like you were there for maybe you're 30, 45 minutes in line and then you're there inside for like 10 to 20 and then you're out. Uh
Mhm.
where like now it was very much as you said, like a 3 hour, like you don't want to leave. There's like stuff we still didn't even get to see. So it's actually really
Mhm.
cool to know that it's extending for a little bit. But
Yeah.
I guess like for people who might be interested in going and haven't yet, like how is it transformed? You said it's like choose your own adventure.
So the property's 10 acres,
Yeah.
and when you come in, you're read short rules and given a map, and it's basically, don't use profanity, don't touch our actors, don't touch our building. And there used to
Hmm.
be a very intense kind of batching rule thing that was theatrical, that was wonderful, but wasn't necessary to get across the key elements. And if we are letting people like we've increased security so our
Yeah.
actors feel safe, and there are,
Mhm.
the world is different, but it also means that like there are more eyes and we have more staff at places, and we're like giving people the freedom to roam around, but saying that here are the core things that we need you not to do,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
then figure it out. So when you come in on the East Drive, there are 4 haunted attractions, and you can look and say, oh, this line is too long, and go to the next one.
Hmm.
Or then in between those, there's a new hybrid that I helped develop that is Bizarre Bar and Big Top Terror. Big Top Terror is a brand new attraction, which is a haunted carnival that
Yeah.
leads directly into Bizarre Bar that you can also just walk into from the East Drive, that has various carnival performers. There's Lollipop Lyra, there's a magician. We've gained some trending activity from our Petrifier the Clown, who is a
Mhm.
super creepy character. And
Yeah.
then there's performers on the East Drive spinning poi and kind of showing people that, you know, before there is something beautiful about the relentlessness of the previous haunted house and
Hmm.
many of them. But if you are ready for a break, or you want to have a drink, or you want to socialize or think, you know what, like maybe I need to chill out for a second, you can do that. Where like my parents came through, and my mom never in a million years would have gone to a haunted house other than to support me, but she was able to go and have a great evening and not do the scare things. Or
Mhm.
Yeah.
someone can say they have enough, and I like I've had family who their kids wanted to go through a haunt again, but they didn't need to. So they went and like were roasting marshmallows at S'mores and Lures over by a fire pit while their kids got to go have fun and know that they're in an environment where they're safe.
Yeah.
Um, and then so after the East Drive, there are um, the Cell Block 3 flashlight guided tours, which is an add-on, which now that the education team is built in, it goes through the old infirmary, and you have a tiny flashlight with an educator that walks you through this crazy space that's like really phenomenal and really interesting stuff about like how the penitentiary actually like did some educating with people there, that people who like helped in the medical ward actually were able to get jobs in the profession later. And you can go into the old surgery room where an old tree was growing out of it.
Oh,
And then
interesting. Yeah.
there's the Fair Chance Beer Garden, which has Triple Bottom Brewing. There's pizza you can get. Then you can do the guided voice tour if you'd like. But then into S'mores and Lores, which is there's fire pits and sterno, and there's there's s'mores there you can buy, where there's a group called Tuck-ins, which has these kind of reverse marshmallows. Reverse s'mores. That's a big marshmallow with
Yeah.
everything on the inside, and you can roast those. And there's all of the actors there tell ghost stories up on a platform, and then it switches between them with recorded ghost stories from other actors inside the prison, and then takes you to a nice photo op pumpkin arch that we had this kind of crazy jack-o'-lantern thing that we had created. And then there's Gargoyle Gardens, which has a skeleton dance troupe dance party, which we have
Yes.
increased the
That's
number of
fun.
performers there this year. Previous years ago, it used to be the SWAT team. And since we no longer have anything that involves anything police related, there's no prisoners, there's no prison guards, nothing that is in the haunt is focused on the things that happened in the prison or that might be generally triggering for people that have these
Yeah.
strong feelings, so the skeleton dance troupe is an amazingly talented crew of performers that they do have 2 choreographed dances that happen every 25 to 30 minutes. And in there's a countdown timer. So you can see when the next one is and then walk around and come back. Then you go to the crypt, or you can go to the crypt, which is another one of our haunts, followed by the Bloodline Lounge, which is a fancy vampire bar, which last year was just a part of the VIP package and now is open to the public. But if you do get the VIP
cool.
ticket, you get a free drink, which has ballerinas, like multiple different singers. There's comedy there now that's sort of just evolved out of the performers feeling confident in the space. They do the time warp. They will do the waltz, and then they'll get guests who want to waltz with them and show them around. And there's Kaleidoscope Hall, which is this immersive lighting and audio experience that I designed with some of my friends. That was a concept that they had tried last year that they loved the idea of, but felt like it could use some reworking, and was one of the first things they asked me to help with. And that was really an interesting and unique concept and project for me to work on. It was very time consuming, but something that I love to do, where I got to be creative in my own right while being a manager for these other things. And this kind of helps showcase the architecture and the space there, where we were designing is this visual experience, but because it's in an open cell block, you have people who are regularly stopping and looking in the cells and reading the information on the walls there. And it's kind of become this hybrid education and an entertainment experience that's been beautiful to watch. And then after that, there is Al Capone's Speakeasy, which is another phenomenal entertainment space that has pullaways and ghostly blackjack. And you can see Al Capone's cell. That's part of the VIP experience.
I remember we got a tarot card reading from a cat.
Madame Meow.
Madame
Meow is phenomenal.
Yeah, they gave us some real solid life advice.
It was so
really
good.
fun.
They're phenomenal.
Yeah, I also really loved the light show thing that was, I forget what you called it, the kaleidoscope place.
Yeah.
That was just so beautiful, and kind of it added to the scariness of it, but also the beautifulness of it, because I remember there was that part where the lights turn off and on and it gets closer and closer to you if you're standing on that little platform. It was just really cool.
We did these audiovisual vignettes that are 30 seconds to a minute and a half long, that each time they give the space a different feel and make the environment, that highlight different lights and shadows, but also kind of invoke different things that show the architecture. But in between each of those, there is an abrupt lights out and a clock ticking as white lights move down the cell. And every night when the lights go out, people will scream. I regularly walk down the hall checking on things, and no matter how hard I try, I unintentionally scare people. And it's not a scare space. And even the actors there tell people not to scare. And if I see someone ahead of me that even seems slightly concerned, I'll be like, just so you know, I'm coming up behind you. I don't want to scare you, just like I would do any woman on the street in a dark alley. Like,
Yeah.
I just let people know I'm not a threat. If you'd like to let me pass, or just so you know, like, I'm not about to jump out at you.
Yeah, that's funny. What would you say is like, it might have been that, but like, what is your favorite part of the experience of like this year as in the new position, and then just also like of
It's
the
it's
Halloween nights in general?
it's twofold. It is the people, the staff. Like, I could not feel more appreciated and supportive. Like, I put a lot of time and energy in, and it feels very much like it was worth it. And that, like, you know, the staff knows that I have their backs, so they're also willing to give more, and they continuously go above and beyond in so many ways. And like, I'm a I'm a new kid there. Like, as I said, the senior manager teams, th- mostly 3 to 20 years. I had the first, like,
Yeah,
during manager orientation, there's 50 managers, and I'm the only new one. And there's one other new senior manager as an educator that's been there outside of that, but that, you know they took me on like I'd been there for just as long, and accept that, respected that I had some new ideas, and that there might be changes that needed to be made to make those happen. But they were respectful of the fact that, like, sometimes those things have to happen to get to where you want to go. And
yeah,
that that's been great. But also then the response of the general public, just how many people have been so positive about what we've created, where I think that the institution was well aware of what happened after last year, and what the positive was from it. But there was a lot of people that were disappointed that it was no longer as scary, or it wasn't what they expected, because people were so invested in this thing that they did every year. So
yeah,
by bringing me on, they are allowed to focus the rest of the people who do scary stuff to do that rather than the entertainment. So
yeah,
it was nice to see people appreciating both sides now, how they originally envisioned this thing, and that it's been really positive.
yeah. I feel like it's made it like a really more like inclusive experience too, because as you said, you can have kids there, you can have people who are not about the scary stuff, just have like an actual like just nice evening,
I'd
not
say
in
over
the
12
haunted
kids.
house.
There's a
Oh
certain
yeah,
point
fair,
that
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But certainly you can have children there in a way that might have been
Yeah.
tougher before.
Yeah.
Whereas if your kid needs a break, you just leave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or I've caught people, like, I'm always on looking for people that may need help in any way. So if it's someone that opens a map or is looking at one of our post maps or something on their face, I will go over and say, "Can I help you? Or do you need something?" And I saw a woman the other night who was like, "Where's the exit?" And I was like, "You are 2 attractions in. Like, are you okay? Like, is
Yeah.
there an emergency?"
Yeah.
And she was like, the flashing lights were just too much. I think it was a little more intense than I thought I could handle. I think I'm ready. I just, like, really need a place to sit down." And I was like, I will happily walk you out, but just so you know, like, if you just walk down this path, there's a quiet area where the Fair Chance
Yeah.
Beer Garden is, and it is less intense after this if you choose it to be. And I'll happily walk you to where you need to go." And she was just so appreciative that she didn't have to leave her friends and could come back
Oh,
and meet up with
yeah.
them when they were done those things.
Yeah, no, for sure. One thing we talked to you about Wimoto was like actual kind of seemingly haunted things or like scary things that happen in working there. Have you experienced anything like that? It's fine if no, but have you experienced any
The scariest thing
ghostly
I've
things?
dealt with was I was working on Kaleidoscope Hall one night. It was 5 in the morning, and the weird sounds that anytime I'd heard weird sounds
Yeah,
there's always been a pigeon at the core of it. There was pigeons that hated my buddy and I while we were working on it. This one kept trying to poop on him. And, like, it was like really got close a couple times. And they were very vocal about us being there. These two pigeons did not like us.
yeah,
And I just was well aware of all the sounds I thought the pigeons could make. And
yeah,
then it's like 5 in the morning, and I hear some loud rustling kind of banging. I know what rats sound like. I know it's much larger than that. And I was like, "Yo, Max,
yeah.
shut up." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "You need to just stop talking." And he's like, okay. And he hears it too. He's like, what the hell is that? I was like, I don't know, but shut up. And I like take a flashlight out. I don't see anything. And then we wait a second and we hear it again. Like we both kind of jump back a little. He grabs like a piece of plywood. I have like a broom. And I put my flashlight over, and there is the biggest possum just covering this trash can.
Well, at least it wasn't a
uh,
ghost. It's just a possum.
so and that guy did not care. Like they would. I didn't mean to gender them, but the possum just
Yeah.
refused to leave that area, and we had to like walk through protecting ourselves each time to like make sure that we weren't bothering it and it wasn't bothering
Yeah.
Yeah.
us. So I think that it's easier to have this job and discount that there is anything going on there, so I don't live in fear. But
Fair,
Yeah.
fair, fair.
that's not to
Yeah.
say my coworkers don't have plenty of stories,
Yeah.
and that there aren't things there. But that's nothing that I've directly had to deal with that wasn't animals.
Related, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's good. That's how you get to go back every day and not be like, oh, I'm terrified because ghosts are happening. That's what we want for you ultimately. Is to
Thank you,
not
I
have
appreciate
real
that.
haunted things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not to be haunted. Yeah, I would say one of the things I really appreciated, like I mean, I appreciated a lot of it. It was super
sure.
entertaining. I had such a great time just like being
That's
in the
great to
space. It
hear.
was giving me very much like a fair kind of
Mm.
vibe, where you're kind of picking and choosing where you're going, you're hanging out. It was very like communal in that way. But I really appreciated all those all the things that you were mentioning where there's this intention and like respect for what this place is, and that this isn't just like this separate entity of like, okay, we're just going to spook people, but also acknowledging like where you are and having that inform and play into the experience in itself. So it's not like, okay, we're pretending this is a new place today. It's like, no, this is a prison that has this very robust history, good and bad, and in the prison industrial system of our country, it has a lot of history there too. And so I just really appreciated those places where it was sprinkled in, and I could feel the intentionality in that. And so I just wanted to mention how grateful I was for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really meaningful to people that have been there for so long in so many ways that it's not two separate things, and that that the mission and the focus about like looking at the uh criminal justice reform and mass incarceration like needs to be present and aware, and that this is what this place was. And there is a lot of good that was done, but there's a lot of bad, but there's also that's the country too. And
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
not acknowledge that is I generally think is wrong, but also that like the world we live in, people need to be doing better, and that
Hmm.
Yeah.
people need to be setting examples, but that there is room for education and learning and entertainment. And that, like, I think the most powerful, like, entertainment experiences make you think about the world around you and the things and the ways that we can do better, or that, like, sure we've learned, but like we haven't learned enough,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how do we just do better? And I think that as an organization it's great to know that that is constantly at the forefront. It's at the forefront of hiring practices. It is like we have just such an amazingly diverse cast of people. There's just like how clear it is that they care about people's identity and who they are outside and inside, and that that is respected as from all parts of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
absolutely.
I think it definitely comes across. I would agree. It was a very fun time, but also it's kind of like the thesis of our show.
Hmm.
And that like horror and scary things can teach you something, and it's almost better when that does
i
happen,
i
you know?
100% that think that. I mean, I think that I love a lot of horror in a lot of different ways, but the ones that like leave you thinking, and like like In the Mouth of Madness is like one of my
Hmm.
all-time favorite movies that like got me the worst because it was heady in a way that was like meta before that was a term. And it was just like
Hmm.
thinking about like what if you are living in a story, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's just it's making you think about things, but also there's so much that it doesn't have to be beating you over the head, but if at least it's starting these conversations or making you think about it, I think that there's, um, yeah, I just think that there's room for both, and there's
Mhm.
room for both to be one thing without compromising the other,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well,
I think like, horror sometimes makes certain topics or ideas like digestible, right? It makes it more like easier for people to like understand or be open to understanding because it's like presented in this entertaining way. And then you're like, wait a second. Like, am
yeah.
I
Did I
learning
just
right now?
learn? Yeah. For sure. What we usually do at the
I think that.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, you go ahead. You go ahead. You say words.
I think that horror in general as a genre is always they so aware of that and is
Mhm.
constantly like critiquing itself and trying
Hmm.
to do better and say like, like things like The Final Girl and like stuff where it's like look at like how we've poorly portrayed women or abuse or things that like were negatives for characters that are actually like real systemic issues in society that we can't just pretend
Mhm.
are like they're the villain because they did this horrific thing. It's like, how do they get this way? Like, why are they this way? And I think that it
Hmm.
constantly is evolving in this way that's entertaining, but also recognizing that like it can do better as a genre and that people are stepping up and that those types of horror movies are being elevated to the top now because I think that it's become so much more necessary in all forms of entertainment.
Mhm.
Yes.
100%. Um, so before we close out, we usually ask our guests, like, one, if there's anything last words, not like last words forever, but last words for the episode, that you want people to know, like to take away with, but also like where they can find you if they wish to find you, if you want them to find you, and like kind of, yeah, your spiel for closing.
Sure. I Halloween nights exists for 4 more show nights. The last 2 nights, the 11th and 12th, is our remix nights, where all
Ooh.
of the lights out are in all of the attractions except for Delirium, which is our 3D blacklight experience.
Mhm.
The entertainment areas will be twisted in ways. There might be some vampirates and some other fun little things going on. So if you've gone before, it will be different and unique, or if you didn't get to see everything, this is an opportunity. I also think it's when I'd always go as a guest because not just because it was scarier, but also you've got a different type of person that's coming 2 weeks after Halloween, and those are my
Mhm.
Yeah,
kind of people.
very true.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think that, and if you have gone to Halloween, go to the tour during the day. It's awesome. You don't get
Yeah.
to see. There's so many unique things about the history, but also like the there are grants they give out every year that take that to artists that that have installations in cells and blocks that are both creative, artistic, and educational that I think is phenomenal to check out. And me, I'm online as Easy Almighty, E letter Z Almighty. If you are going to follow me, I recommend hitting me up, messaging me in most cases, just because I get a lot of strangers and I try to keep some things private. But if you
Yeah.
mention
Yeah.
this podcast, I will happily let anyone in on the weird, fun stuff that I'm involved in, which is pretty constant, even outside of Halloween nights.
Yeah,
Yes.
you've always been like my cool cousin that does DJ stuff and like lives the nightlife and is doing all the interesting things. So
I mean,
I think that
I
lives.
love this podcast. I think that what you guys are doing are great. Like the pandemic afforded me a little time to uh, see what other people in my life were doing because I wasn't just going all the time. There was
Yeah.
not as much to
Hmm.
do as an event producer, and got to see and start listening to this. And like, I love the analyzing you guys do. I love horror. It's like, and I think that this is just great, but also, being able to see that we can connect on things and get to share them with you,
Mhm.
and both appreciate them for what they are. So it's been nice, and thank you
100%.
guys for thinking me and coming out and seeing the show. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a guest and also for
Yeah.
inviting us to that because I don't know if I don't know we were on the fence about going this year until
Hmm.
we got there and I was like, you know what, let's do it. We're 100% going to
Yeah.
do it. And then It was 1000%
I'm
worth
so
it.
glad.
If we had more
That's
time in
great.
this month, we would have gone back more than once. But
Yeah.
October
I
is
get it. No,
chaos.
I'm excited to see how many faces come back that I have a
Yeah.
lot of friends and
Mhm.
family that didn't anticipate being there that long, but also just guests, people who are like,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. So thank you again so much, Easy. That was so informative, and I hope it
Thank you.
motivates folks to check you out for the last week, and then definitely looking forward to next week. In the show notes, you'll see our tags for both of our guests, so you can definitely follow them, see what they're up to, see what new things are coming down the line, because they're both incredibly talented. So like even just like outside of what we're talking about, there are a million things that you could be following them for. So please be sure to do that. Remember to like and subscribe, and let us know about if you went to the the Halloween nights. Tell us how you felt. What was it like for you? If you've been before and you were on the fence, let us know that too. We'd love to hear about other folks' experiences. And with that being said, don't
Yeah.
get married.
They'll eat your kids.
All right. Bye.